Simple interest is something you've probably heard your parents talk about or on the news. And it's calculated when you borrow money or when you invest money. So when you borrow money from the bank, let's say, it's called a loan. And you would do this to buy a new car or to buy a house or to go on a trip. And the bank charges you to borrow it. You can't just borrow money from the bank for free. They charge for this. And usually it's a percent of what you're borrowing. So when you pay back your loan, you pay back everything that you borrowed, plus an amount for borrowing it, an amount for that service. That amount that you pay extra is the interest. So some language to get used to here. The rate is the percentage of what you borrowed that you pay extra. So banks have interest rates, and that's the extra that you pay the bank just for the privilege of borrowing. The time is how many months or years you borrow the money for. The principal is the amount you borrowed, the original amount that you needed. So if you needed $10,000 to buy a car, that's your principal. The original amount is $10,000. The formula for calculating how much interest you pay is the principal, so the original amount, times the percent, and that's the rate, times time. And if we think back to the other percent questions that we've had and percent problems, we've had a number, a percent of it, and so this is normal. And now we're just doing it times time. So we take that amount, a percent of a number, and times it. So every month it would get added on, or every year you get charged it. Okay, let's try one. It might make more sense. So to figure out the interest, we have I equals PRT, principal times rate times time. How much interest would you pay on a loan of $50,000 at a rate of 2% per year? So this is important in the questions we get to. The rate is always calculated per year, and that relates directly to the time. $50,000, 2% per year for 2 years. So let's put that in our equation. There's our principal, it's the original amount we borrowed, our rate, and our time. So $50,000, there's our percent as a decimal for 2 years. $2,000 is what that all ends up being. So you would pay $2,000 in interest to borrow the money. That's just what you're paying in order to borrow the money. What do you pay total at the end of the year? How much do you repay? So you repay your principal plus the interest, what it's costing you to borrow it. In this case, we repay everything we borrowed, $50,000, plus the $2,000 interest, which means at the end of this, we're repaying $52,000. So make sure that when you get questions like this, you're figuring out if you're finding the interest or if you're finding how much you're repaying, because they're very different things. So how much would you be repaying in total if you borrowed $10,000 at 4% per year for 6 months? So $10,000 sounds like our principal. There's our rate, and there's our time. Okay, so our rate is in years, and our time is in months. How can we figure this out? Because they need to be the same units. If it's 4% per year, and we only have 6 months, we don't pay the full 4%. So there are 12 months in 1 year, and we're only paying for 6 months of those. This as a decimal, 6 divided by 12, 0.5. So this is our rate. This is our time. That's our time, and here's our rate, because our rate is in years and our time is in months. So the interest equals the principal times the rate times the time. We have $10,000 times 0.04 times 0.5, because it's only half a year. So if you do that in the calculator, 10,000 times 0.04 times 0.5, you get $200. So that is the interest. What you repay is everything you borrowed plus the interest that it cost you. So we borrowed $10,000 and it's going to cost us $200 just to borrow it, which brings what we're repaying, 10,000 plus 200 is 10,200. So the answer to the question, therefore, we would repay in total $10,000 and 200.